see Janice. Welcome, everybody.
Pretty fun.
And I think we might as well, based on that information, we might as well just start the meeting and get going.
Sure.
So, without further ado, I will call the meeting to order. Is there, do we have the national anthem, Madam Clerk?
We do indeed.
All right.
There's no sound.
Not hearing any sound, Madam CAO.
Oh,
With glowing hearts we see thee rise, a true North, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Lord, keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
were you able to hear the end part?
Yes, we were. Thank you.
Okay, I remember that toggle.
The municipality of Whitestone recognizes all of Canada resides on traditional, unceded and/or treaty lands of the Indigenous people of Turtle Island. We recognize our municipality on the Robinson-Huron Treaty Territory is home to many past, present, and future Indigenous families. This acknowledgement of the land is a declaration of our commitment and collective responsibility to reconcile the past and to honor and value the culture, history, and relationships we have with one another. So I will now ask if there's any pecuniary interest to declare on the part of any member, any of the council members. And I see Councillor Nash has now joined us as well, so. Okay, well, hearing none, let the record show that there was no pecuniary interest declared. Could I get the mover and seconder, please, to approve the agenda as circulated? Councillor Woods moves, Councillor Bray seconds. All those in favor? Okay, I think we have an agenda. And it's basically a one item agenda. This is a special meeting to continue to work on its strategic plan. I don't see any so far, by the way, I don't see any others who are not members of council, but of course we do have our CAO clerk on the call, and we do have Paula McCree, our planning assistant, who is going to take notes as she has very ably in the past meetings. Thank you, Paula. So, could I now get a motion to adjourn to committee of the whole to consider the strategic plan?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb, seconded by Councillor Woods. And the time is 3:07 p.m. All those in favor? Great, thank you. Okay, now we can see you, Counselor Nash. I knew you were there. So that, we're now in committee of the whole, and our next motion will be when we go to come back into regular council meeting, hopefully. You all have in front of you just a couple of very quick remarks. Well, first of all, I should point out to you as you know, I had a bit of a medical incident at the time of the last council meeting the last regular council meeting that didn't actually take place as a result of technical difficulties. I'm still not 100% from that. So if I'm not anticipating any problem, but if necessary, I may call on Councillor Lamb to take the chair at some point if I have to slip out for a second, but I'm hoping that won't be necessary. And the second comment I was going to make, which is about what we're doing, what we're trying to accomplish today. You have in front of you a package that was prepared by staff that shows all of essentially the results of the last meeting that we had, and they're highlighted in red. And so what I'm going to ask you to do, just to start with, is to take a look at the main body of the strategic plan, which is it's the first, sorry, I'm just flipping through to see how many pages. It's the first, well, 17 pages of the 27 in your package, which are the part that we have historically circulated to the public as a sort of a high-level document. And what I'm hoping we can do, you will see the edits that have been made by our staff as a result of the discussion we had at the last meeting in February. And I'm hoping that we can avoid trying to wordsmith this document. There will be a final edit of it after we're done, you know, by staff, just to kind of clean it up for presentation and so on. But I'm hoping that today we can avoid doing that. But I would ask you, I'd like to give you the opportunity to having looked at that, to say if there's anything important that you think we have missed, or anything that should no longer be there, that should just be taken out, or anything that's missed. So if this is kind of a, you know, going once, last kick at the can as far as the high level part. And then of course I'm hoping that what we can do next is move on to the action items that we didn't finish in the last meeting. I think we got sort of 2 out of 8 of them done. So that's really where we need to spend our bulk of our time today. So I'll open it up. Is there anybody who wants to highlight something that we've missed or you know, need to do some more work on in that first? Those are pages 4 through I'm going to say 4 through, I guess, 17 of the 27 are the pages I'm talking about. Yeah. Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, thank you. I want to thank staff for, well, the entire document. I think it's an excellent job, and it really helps us hopefully make this meeting shorter rather than longer. So I have nothing in terms of the first, whatever, 17 or 20, anyway, the high level stuff. I have no comment other than one. On page 5 of 27, Mr. Mayor, you sign it. You know, I've always believed that you know, this isn't a George Comrie document. Obviously, it's a council document. So, you know, I would add at the end of I would do one of 2 things. I would either have it say sincerely, the council of the municipality of Whitestone is one option. Or you could sign it, but right below it say on behalf of the council of the municipality of Whitestone, so that people recognize that this is a council document. And anyway, that's the only change I would have up until we get to the action items. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's noted. You'll appreciate the fact that I have not, that's the message that is in the existing version of the plan. I haven't done any work on this, and I figured I would wait till we had it all done, but
Okay, yeah, as long as,
I will take your second suggestion and add on behalf of council if that.
Yep.
I have no problem with that.
thank you.
Anything else about those pages? Councillor Woods.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just one quick one. Yeah, thanks to staff, because I mean, without them, we couldn't get a lot of this stuff done, that's for sure. So I'd just like to send my thanks along to everybody, because I know this has been kind of a hectic time for all of us. George, I really hope you're feeling better. Good to see you again. Now my comment about the document 4.1 on page 11 of 27, I think is a great statement. The municipality will continue to communicate and collaborate with community groups and associations that exist within the bounds of the municipality. Right there where I've stopped, I think we should put in as well as members of the public as a means of focusing our collective efforts on environmental stewardship. And that statement itself, to me, even if you took out the environmental stewardship, that's a statement that should speak to everything that we do here in the municipality. And that's the only comment I have, other than thanks very much to all the staff that work on this for us.
Yeah, just put a note there in the public at large or something. Okay, I think we can capture that. Speaking on behalf of Paul and our CAO. All right, Councillor Bray, I see has her hand up.
The only thing I thought that we could probably, and I hate to say this, I'm just trying to find it again, but it was to do with just adding in seniors, because we do have a large senior population. Sorry. Oh, yes, here it is. It's 2.2. Sorry, 2.2. 2.2.
All right.
Oh, shoot, maybe I've got the wrong one, but it had to do with, I thought there was a place and I just saw it and now I can't find it. Maybe
I
go
would
on to
have thought it
Scott.
would have been in number 8 somewhere, or number 7. So sorry, not number 8, number 7, the building community part, but
Shoot. Go on to Scott and let me see if I can find it.
all right.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, and glad to see that you're back. It's really nice.
Thank
I just have one really quick comment, and Councillor Woods already spoke to a little bit of it. Under 4.1, so page 8 of 14. I was simply going to add, I'll let that scroll down to 4.1 there. Just on the heading where it said environmental stewardship, and then it says outreach to community groups and associations. I was just going to add the word outreach to the public, comma, community groups and associations. And I think that's more in keeping with what we spoke to at our first stewardship committee meeting. And if Councillor Woods had mentioned about adding at the end of the words exists within the bounds of the municipality, something to the effect of members of the public, that would be the only thing I would have commented on. So again, under 4.1, outreach to the public, comma, community groups and associations. And then in keeping with what Councillor Wood said at the end of the first sentence under 4.1. That was it. Everything else, I think, Staff has worked hard on putting it all together, and I think it reflects what council had spoken to.
Okay, thank you. I was going to suggest as I'm looking at this, maybe the thing to do is to change the heading to outreach, just outreach to the community. And then put because you've got groups, associations and individuals or groups,
Yeah.
associations and the public at large in the part below. How about that?
I think
That's
that
a
works.
good
very
idea.
well. Good.
That
good
works.
comment.
Yeah,
So that's my editorial suggestion. Right, but anyway.
Yeah, I think
So,
it's a good one.
all right, so Councillor Bray, did you find a good place for your,
I did. Thank you again, Mr. Mayor, and I'm glad to see you're back and that you're doing fairly well. So that's great. It was 2.2 and it was in the red, the part that's in red. The municipality is committed to ensuring equal access and participation for seniors, people with disabilities. So all I was going to add is in for seniors.
oh, okay.
And thank you. That's all I had to comment on the first part of this.
Okay, well, thank you. Everybody for those contributions. I think we are, I honestly think we are making it a little better, and I'm one of the people that likes to have it, kind of as crisp and clean as you can make it. So I think we've done a good piece of work on the and the staff has done a good piece of work on that portion. So if I can move on to the action plan, then at the last meeting, you'll recall, we basically got through, I think, the first couple of sections. And I'm gonna just ask us for, well, how about this? You will see that there is some red. You can tell how far we got because once you get past page about 20, you don't see much red. There's the odd little piece, but that does, so that's how far we got the last time. So why don't we go back and follow the logical progression here? Is there anything about the parts that we, hopefully we're not going to go back to square one on them, but is there anything about the parts we did in the last meeting that you want to revisit?
Mr. Mayor?
Councillor Lamb?
Yeah, just briefly. I didn't spend a lot of time trying to put in, third quarter of 2023 or the first quarter of 2024. I think staff can fill in a lot of that stuff. When I looked at all this, I thought, well, overall, what do we want to achieve in 2023, given that we're into May now? And, quite frankly, and there'd be obviously little things added here and there and whatever, but I mean, if we can get through and finish off our procedural bylaw, if we can obviously finish this strap plan. The third thing I sort of had is we've got a big job in terms of how planning is done and ultimately John Jackson's kind of replacement this fall, I think is an item for 2023. I think we were talking about bringing the parking bylaw kind of in and redoing that so that we can, kind of make sure that handicap accessible parking, et cetera, is prosecuted. And then the only other thing I could think of this year that will take up some time, and I think is kind of timely, is the short-term rental bylaw. And maybe, I don't know whether we finished off the trailer bylaw, but that one too. But I think that those things in my mind are the main things that can be accomplished this year. In terms of next year, obviously, we've got to kick in the official plan at some point. But all the rest of the items are either ongoing or they just need to be laid in so that we can, basically council and staff have the remainder of this year, 2024 and 2025, to get this body of work and action plans as best we can completed. You really don't want a lot of action plans slipping into 2026. There's an election and that sort of thing. So those are just my general comments. So again, you won't hear me saying, here's where you should put it, other than I've mentioned the 2023 stuff, the 2024 stuff. I think we have to plan for the official plan and when we're going to start that and whatever. So anyway, that's all my general comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just one question on that, and I think everything you said makes sense. As you were going across the list of bylaws, I didn't hear the animal bylaw. Did we ever finish that one? That was
No.
I wonder if our CAO, and I'm not sure where this belongs in here, if it belongs anywhere, but I'm going to ask our CAO if she has any sort of update on what did it sort of die with the Agriculture Committee or not, whatever that was called, that committee, or where is it at? Or is it, or should it not even be on the list, I guess?
No, it's waiting in the wings. If you'll notice, I think it's either the first or second item on unfinished business. When there was a presentation back in maybe August 2022, I don't recall, before the election. The idea was council received for information the proposed bylaw, and I think indicated that it would be addressed with the new council. So there's been no amendments since that presentation, and it's waiting in the wings. It should be added to the list of bylaws policies to be either revisited or prioritized otherwise.
Okay, well, maybe we can put that as just a parking lot item or something to pick up at a that's a parking lot, by the way, has nothing to do with parking cars. It's a strategic plan. It's part of the strategic planning terminology that people often use. But anyway, just so we don't lose sight of it, and at some point, I guess what we'll do is have a list of bylaws that we think need attention that we can prioritize.
Yeah. And could I, through you, Mr. Mayor, just one quick comment?
Sure.
Thanks. And by the way, I'm having some video difficulty, so you'll probably see me pop it on and off a bit. But the one, I think we might come up to it as we go through the list of bylaws and stuff, but just the one thing I don't know if we want to briefly touch on today at some point is simply I know it was going to be on the council meeting that was canceled there, but if we wanted to put onto the strategic plan, or if we as council decide that we didn't need to go any further, was on there was something on a fill bylaw and site altering bylaws.
Yeah, that would be a good, I mean, once again, I don't know if our CAO can advise if she sort of has that on her list of things that came out of the discussion around Lorimer Lake, if I recall. And I don't think council made a decision that we should necessarily do them. I don't believe we did, but
No, we did not, but we did ask for a fill or for a report to come forward,
Yeah.
which it has and was going to be discussed last week until the meeting got canceled. So that whole fill bylaw and site alteration bylaw idea is coming on at the next council meeting. So I guess to answer Councilor Nash's question, I think we'll know a lot more after that meeting, right? Whether there's an appetite for that or not. If there isn't, it dies kind of, right?
Yep, I would guess so. All right, so are there other comments on these? On the red line, the red parts of these first few pages, 18 to 20. Okay, I'm not hearing anything. Doesn't it's not that's not a cause of concern, believe me. You can now move and start taking a look at Madam Theo, did you finish? You did, right?
We're not hearing everything you're saying, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry, did we finish high level objective number 2? Like, are we, is there anything else under number 2 that we didn't get to the last meeting? I can't remember.
As I recall, we finished number 2 and then the meeting was over. So
All right.
you'll see comments and notes in red in fiscal responsibility. And I believe if there's nothing there, where you want to start management systems.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say. I just want to make sure I'm not missing. All right, so let's take a look at those then. We're in section 3 of 8 because we added another section. We had 7 before, so.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
At the top of page 19 of 27, where it says, I don't know, it says revised subtask. I just wrote the word official plan and then we're talking about examples. You know, how citizens can interact with council. And I just wanted the word, you know, official plan. That's one of the main interactions we're going to have, along with some of these other things. So I just wanted the name official plan put in there. That's the only thing I have
Okay, good.
on the first
Could
stuff.
you say that item again, Councillor?
At the very top of page 19, it says actions. I don't know what it is. It says description, revised subtask 1.2.4.
Okay,
Just put somewhere in there official plan, because that's where we're going to get a lot of input, obviously, when we get to it.
okay, thank you. We have that.
Yeah, that's all I have.
Okay, then. Back to section 3.
Okay, well, sorry, I have one. Sorry, I had something in 2. I think if we're talking about fiscal accountability and responsibility, we have to make a statement, I think, about you know, our relatively low tax rate, which again, I don't think is a bad thing at all. And I think we somehow need to tie that into these inflationary times. That's one of the main things that this council is going to face, particularly if inflation stays at 5 or 6%. I saw it was 4.3 last month, so hopefully it's going to continue to go down. But I think we have to make some statement in our fiscal responsibility and accountability about, you know, we've historically had a relatively low tax rate compared to some other communities. And this is particularly important that we pay attention to fiscal responsibility in these, what appears to be higher inflationary times in terms of our borrowing and that kind of stuff. So I don't know how to wordsmith it, but I did add that in under fiscal responsibility and accountability somewhere. So thank you.
And that one was, is that? Sorry, I'm just trying to think what it comes under. The 2.7 or,
I don't know. I had it just.
okay, I'm just looking back here. I'll find it.
2.5. I think it ends at 2.5, doesn't it? Or no, it's only a 2.5 is the end. So
There was something about the tax rate appears somewhere though.
well, if it does, then I'm happy with it, right? But I didn't see anywhere in here where it talks about inflation.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, yes, go ahead.
under 2.1 in the under the strategic objectives, it does talk about the municipality will continue to enhance our fiscal planning and budget process, taking into consideration inflation and interest rates, increase in cost of living, and key commodities.
Okay.
So
I guess-
that's 2.1.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you.
But to Councillor Lamb's suggestion, I think that actually what you suggested, Councillor Lamb, would be great in the intro, if I could call it that.
Yeah, I
message?
just think that we need to have, I mean, there's an overwhelming set of these conditions exist, particularly the inflationary times that are going to determine our budgeting process. And there's already in our budget, talking about we don't want to hire, or we don't want to borrow at 7% when maybe next year it's whatever, right? So I'm great. I'm great that it's in the high level stuff. I just don't know what programs we can put in place. Maybe there is no action plan that way. Anyway, I just wanted to bring it up. Just that we have to be careful in our fiscal decisions, given these high inflationary times or whatever, right? And prudent, I guess, is another word that comes to my mind. Anyway, I don't know where it goes in or if it goes in. So.
Okay, sorry, I have found it, but I was looking for 6.6 is promote our commercial tax rate, but that's not what you were.
No,
That's not what you're talking about. You're talking about something to be added, I would argue, under 2. Well, it's maybe what it was maybe it's an item under 2.1, right?
yeah,
But
I don't know. I just
can we? I'm going to ask our CAO. Can you? Were you able to capture something that you could add under 2.1?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I've got some notes here and we'll give some thought to where it should best be located. It's, it's an action plan related to maybe the budget process, but let me give some thought. I've got notes, so
Yeah.
the request is duly noted.
thank you.
Okay, so is there anything more before we get to item 3? Section 3, I mean. Now, section 3 starts on page 22 of 27. What do we got for that? Page 22 of 27. Oh, that this is, we're into management systems now. Anything about any of those that you want to?
You're cutting out, George, sorry.
I'm sorry, I don't know why that is, but can you hear me now all right?
Yep.
I think it's when you face sideways, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, okay, I should have put my headset on, I guess. I apologize. I'll just make sure I'm facing the microphone here. Okay, anything about page 22?
If I-
Counselor Nash.
Yeah, if I might, through you, Mr. Mayor, just under item 3.6, the only thing I have on page 22 is just three little comments under item 3.6, and I just wondering if we could include there. I know some of them are well underway already, but I didn't see anything in there. I think it was alluded to earlier, the parking bylaw. If maybe we could just add a bullet point for that. I believe we're right in the midst of approving the updated fee bylaw, so I don't know if that could be put on there. And the last one was the procedural bylaw, if that could be put on there. That's my only comments for that page, if those three items might be able to be added, unless we don't think they should be.
Okay, thank you.
And just while Counselor Nash is on that, I would be putting in the animal bylaw. I would add to that, and I'm not sure we wouldn't add to that the official plan. Into that list that we have, like trailer bylaw, notice bylaw, and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, I think the message is maybe we should expand the list, and
Yeah,
the way I would usually look at this is expand the list, and then you can always go back and, you know, prioritize it, which may result in some being deferred for some time. But things like fees and charges, we do that every year. Of course, we're updating that. We review it every year, and I think we update it every year pretty much, but other ones we won't. We will be doing in this term of council, but we won't. They don't happen every year, so like, you know, the procedure bylaw or the parking bylaw or whatever, they should be on the list, but no, we will ultimately have to decide when we're going to do it. All right, so thank you. Is there anything else on page 22?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, it strikes
Go
me,
ahead.
and I can't seem to find it, but I think the procedure bylaw had its own line item. Now I can't seem, oh, there it is. If you look at 3.5, 3.5.1 is review council procedure bylaw and recommend changes.
oh, sorry.
Oh, yes,
And
you're right.
that has been there since last year, which is why it isn't under 3.6. We can combine everything. And it probably makes sense to have a combination of all of these procedures and bylaws that should be, some are reviewed annually, some we review every 3 to 5 years, which we haven't necessarily done. But it is important from a staff perspective that council identify what the priorities are, so that we're not jumping from bylaw to bylaw, and the methodology in which you want to update these. Do you want a task force? Do you want it to be staff led? So there's, I know we can come back to that, but that's important if we're setting priorities for today, so that we know going forward which where the focus of effort has to be.
Good idea.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on page 22?
Yeah, I have a couple things. I don't know whether they're 22 or somewhere else, but I think we have to address at some point, and I think we have already, and it's been explained to me of some systems, but I don't understand it. But when it comes to things like cybersecurity, our systems and our records and all that kind of stuff. And we've got, you know, some cameras at the landfill sites and the whole internet issue. You know, we got internet all over the place. We've got 4 or 5 different systems in Dunchurch. I think we need to put something in about reviewing and staying current and ensuring the protection of our our systems and the internet concerns me. I guess we can burrow down on that. You know, we've talked about nano beams and cables going under Highway 124. I think we've got to come up with a solution on that. I also think when it comes to the internet, and again, this is maybe one topic that we need to figure out our support, with fiber optics coming in and Starlink and these sorts of things. I don't know whether eventually we couldn't look at a program perhaps supporting Starlink in some of our rural communities for taxpayers who may sign up for Starlink. Like I've had that suggested to me that we may want to, take some tax dollars. And I noticed Starlink, I think for personal use, took the equipment from $800 to $350 or $700 to $350. And someone has suggested what happens if we encouraged it by throwing in $100 for the first, 100 people that get Starlink in some of the areas where fiber optic is not going in, or a program such as that. So I think we need to kind of sort of have something in there. I don't know whether it's our management systems or whether it's somewhere else. I want to make sure that we're compliant and that we have proper systems in place for protecting our data. Anyway, that's I guess a general statement. I don't know where it goes in or if it goes in, but I think that's something that some taxpayers may want us to make sure that we spend some time. Because it's a major issue, right? And I don't think we can't not talk about it. So, thank you.
So there is some, at some point in the near future, we should have a presentation coming to council to that is a status update on the contracts that the government of Ontario awarded to bring fiber up the Highway 124 corridor and fiber to the premise to people who are within striking range of the 124 corridor. And of course, that'll affect our like our municipal office, our library, our community center, our works garage, and other places that meet that criterion. They're within striking distance of the corridor. It gets, and they will get, essentially my understanding is they will get gigabit Ethernet right away. They're considered anchor tenants, so to speak. And then members of the public, ordinary households and other businesses and so on along the way will follow. And that isn't going to do anything for the folks in Ardbeg, or Whitestone. But there is an approach other than Starlink, and for those people to tap off what's on the Dunchurch side. And so the question is, how quickly will that happen, and does it make sense for people to use Starlink in the interim? And there may be some people in our municipality for whom Starlink is going to be the only option long term, the only viable option long term. But anyway, not to answer this, you're going to get a presentation on it, but where do we? I mean, I'm going to ask our CIO, where should this? I agree with Councilor Lamb. I don't know how I missed this myself, because this is always an issue for me. Where would we put this? Does it belong in number 3 or does it belong in somewhere else? I don't know what the,
My sense. of
maybe, is
looking
it
at
in the asset
other headings-
management part or where?
So. You're good for me, Chuck? Yeah, it belongs.
Yes,
in-
go ahead,
it
please.
Belongs in number 3. Under management system, so. We'll create. I've got all the notes. We'll create a space for this that has to do with. Internet issues, cybersecurity, compliant, support,
There isn't a high level item for it that I see on, like on page 10 of 27. I don't see, we might need to put something else there, right? But the only other. You wouldn't consider it under number 5, infrastructure, eh?
actually. I want to think about it, whether it's. Well, it's not our infrastructure. I actually think it belongs under management systems. And I'm just going back to the high level. Items here. You know, it could
Okay.
very well be that we create a 3.7, which
Yeah.
speaks to this.
Yeah,
because
that
it
might
is
be-
unique.
Yeah, Michelle, I would suggest that there's 2 points. There's the whole ongoing commitment to ensure that we have the, great cybersecurity and that end of things, right? That are any camera systems, any internet, any records that we have are all protected. Then I would say that a second bullet part, probably a separate number, would be the whole internet and high-speed internet within the community. I think they're 2 separate. They're related, but I think they're 2 separate things, but whatever you think is best.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean,
Mhm.
maybe it belongs in number 7, which is building community. Maybe the concept of public internet, I'm gonna argue belongs in 7, but our own internet and security some a bit bigger subject. But anyway, all I'm trying to do is right now is capture this. And I'm not trying to wordsmith it. I'm just gonna capture it, figure out where we put it. But we at least need a 3.7 to deal with the municipalities cybersecurity or internet and cybersecurity, and then we need if we're going to talk about doing something for the public, that's probably somewhere else. The 2 of them, as it happens, go hand in hand, right? But because our ability to assist the public at large with internet is fairly limited. It boils down to essentially to subsidy in the short term, which I don't know, given our our fiscal position, is something we're gonna be
No,
able
not this year.
No. Anyway, is that have we captured it enough?
Yeah, I've got good notes.
All right.
Yeah, the other thing that I don't think I've mentioned is that we have a number of public access points for internet, which we can integrate into supporting the community, the building community. So I've got some notes and some ideas, so leave it with me and we can move on and we'll pull our notes together and you'll see it at the next iteration of this document.
Okay. Anything else under section 3, management systems? So if not, how about we move to number 4? Number 4 is environmental stewardship.
Well, I have a couple things, sorry.
Go ahead, Councilor Lamb.
4.1, I think, again, just following up with what we said earlier, I think we have to say, put the public in there, you know, where we talk about community groups and collaborate with community groups and associations. Again, we have to put in the public, as Councillor Nash had said earlier. 4.5, I think we have to put in something very, maybe it's just one line in there that says, you know, start to plan for the eventual closure of York Street landfill site. Because there's no doubt during this 4-year term, you know, that you know, the end of York Street as a landfill site is going to be not upon us, but certainly in the near future, and we have to make sure that we have reserves and things for that. So, because it's going to be expensive to replace. But anyway, that's the only thing I had in there, and I don't know where, by the way, and maybe I've missed it, but somehow on this page I put in official plan and the resultant zoning bylaw. But I didn't see very much of that in the document, so maybe this is the wrong place for that. But at some point, unless I've missed it, we have to.
It's in the new section. It would go in the new section 8, I think, Councilor Lamb.
Okay, good. Well, yeah, we have to talk.
But you
about-
won't see it. Well, I don't think you'll see it here. Maybe there aren't. And I see there aren't any section 8 pieces yet. We haven't got to
Okay.
those, but
Yeah,
hopefully
sorry,
we'll
well, that's good by me.
Yeah.
I just think we need to address it, but that's all I have on page 23. Thank you.
okay, somebody else on page 23.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I might.
Go ahead.
And I think it's the only comment I had, Councillor Lamb already mentioned it, and I'm gonna go with the suggested wording that you'd used for 4.1. I think we can just have it as outreach to community, and leave it after that. And then, we make note of the public in the next section, just outreach to community.
Very good. For high level, yeah. All right. Thank you. Councillor Bray, you had something for this.
Yes, we don't have anything for 4.8, which is address climate change resiliency. And what I would put in under a subtask would be the municipality working towards incorporating climate change adaptation into our municipal planning, or something like that.
Okay, staff, did you capture that all right? You wanted to say it again?
No, I've got that. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, no, I thank you for that. I want to support that and just say, I have a dream, and I briefly and perhaps unrealistically hope that we might even be able to do it in connection with the nursing station expansion, but there is an option that exists for us that I think is quite good. That has some capital costs associated with it, but we could have a central heating and cooling plant that would heat the properties that are on you know, like the nursing station, the municipal office and fire hall, the community center, the LCBO, it's still there, and all is on that same site, and whatever else, you know, using ground source heat pumps instead of, and perhaps some supplementation with solar and so on. So there are some opportunities. And we might be able to get some federal funding to assist with doing this. So it's not like if that's a $500,000 project that it necessarily the taxpayers all have to bear the whole cost of it. But there are some opportunities, and we should definitely plan for them first. Plan to say, let's look at this when before we do any more expansion of buildings or moving things around or anything like that, because right now we've got two sources of fuel, or two sources of energy. Source number one is propane. Source number, which is a hydrocarbon, of course, and generates, carbon emissions. Source number two is hydro, some of which is, and hydro has to be generated somewhere, and in a lot of cases that generation is not entirely clean, or the capacity doesn't exist, but there is free energy in the ground, in the lake, in the sun that we could use. End of sermon. But I think this should be in the plan, so that as we're considering projects like this going forward, we figure out how we might be able to do that. Make a plan. All right. Anything else on page 23? Okay. How about section 5?
I have a couple things.
3 more to go. We have 3 more sections. Item 5. This is the maintenance of our infrastructure, which typically is referencing physical infrastructure.
I have a couple things here.
Go ahead.
Yeah. The whole idea of strategic land acquisition or divestiture is always something that council dabs in. But more importantly, I didn't see anything here about the debate on and the resolving what's going to be done with the Twist property or the Franklin property, unless I missed it somewhere. But I think we need it. That is our infrastructure. I guess the land that the Franklin property is. So we need that whole debate on what we're going to do, and I guess that stretches into other buildings, right? The whole campus, as I call it, in Dunchurch, right? That whole debate has to take place, and if it's not in here somewhere, I think we have to put it in. This may not be the place, but that's what I had written down.
I would say it is exactly the place. But yes, thank you. Councillor Bray.
Yes, I agree with that as well. And I think maybe we could expand number 5.4, develop a public land strategy. And perhaps maybe we need to add in something around our 2 newly acquired properties.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would see a 5.4 point. And I don't know, maybe that's really one point, a 5.4.2, which just says develop plans for the Twist and Franklin properties, or the former Twist and Franklin properties. Again, I had originally, as you know, advocated that we have a sort of a the downtown Dunchurch development plan that would look at the whole municipal campus, and because I think I think once you start doing that, then you need to take into consideration where everything that is there today and where it is, and you know, and it is worth thinking about. I mean, it's not, you know, I'm not advocating that we start a whole bunch more building projects or whatever, but if we had to expand the community center, for example, I mean, because there could be, we may need more space there at some point, and we don't have any storage and this sort of thing. So we don't have sufficient storage for that building as it presently exists. So, you know, the question is, where would you put it? If you were going to expand it, or wherever, how would you expand it, et cetera? And you have to do that in consideration of everything else that's on that, you know, municipal campus. Okay, and anything else on this section?
If I might, through you, Mr. Mayor,
Mm-hmm.
just one really quick one. It might fall under another item. But I don't know if maybe we want to create an item under, maybe it's 5.5 here, just on the landfill for the maintenance of our infrastructure. I'm just thinking maybe we want to earmark a line item to be landfill in regards to the planning and succession of the landfills, and possibly a transfer station in the year to come, just so the public can see that it's on our radars. It might already be covered somewhere else, and I might have just missed it. But if it's not, maybe we could put one there.
Well, I thought we just captured that under
Oh.
section 4.
You know what? You're right. 4.5. Never mind. Sorry. I apologize, everybody.
Okay,
Sorry
no
about that.
problem. No
Sorry.
problem. Yeah, all right.
Mr. Mayor, we do have a new initiative, and that is 5.5. I didn't put anything in there. I assume council would provide direction, and that is the public access points and open spaces. The municipality will review, develop policies, and invest in municipal access points, boat launches, landings, parklands, and trail systems. So I don't know if there's an action plan for this year, or that can just be noted as there'll be the description of the subtask, and the progress will be ongoing, and a priority and timeline to be established.
Okay, anybody have a suggestion as to what, that's a good point. We did add to this list, so we should have some, I think we should have some action item. Any suggestions?
Mr. Mayor?
Mm-hmm. Councilor.
I was thinking that we have been getting some reports, and I think there are a few more reports coming. So I think part of it could be to receive and review those reports, and then to develop a plan maybe in the next year. Just so that we make sure we keep tabs on this, and make sure we don't miss it.
I don't know, can you just put something there related to staff reports, Michelle? 5.5.1.
Yeah, I've got that noted. So 5.5.1 will actually be the subtask below, which is the wording below, which is to develop policies and invest. And I'll make some notes about receiving review ongoing reports and develop plans for 2024.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, if I might, it might have already been said there, but I believe the asset management plan, we are also going to be having the review of the municipal infrastructures at the landing. So I don't know if we might want to capture that in there, unless that's already captured under the asset management plan previously.
Asset management plan was under number 2, wasn't it? But,
So that is noted, if you see 2.2.3. Ensure parks, public landings and docks are a component of the asset management plan. And
Yeah.
that is the 2023 initiative.
I mean, I guess there are really two parts to it. I mean, the asset management plan itself ensures that we've captured the asset and we have, evaluation of it, and we have a periodic review of what's necessary to maintain it. But in this, under the maintenance of our infrastructure, I mean, there is a lot of overlap, I realize, but making decisions to improve the asset other than maintaining it in the state that it's in is probably, maybe in fact that belongs here. I don't know. Because it's not, if you think about these things, these are not necessarily, what will I say? It's not pure, it's not maintenance in the purest sense, right? It's in some cases it involves creating new infrastructure and or enhancing the infrastructure, which ultimately, of course, will feed the asset management plan, but it's not. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's a case could be made for putting something somewhere under one of these things. I don't know where it would go, but we're pretty specific here. We're talking about the road and bridge plan. We're talking about the private road grant protocol. We're talking about information and regulatory signs, and we're talking public land strategy, and talking public access points and spaces. I don't know. What do you think? You want to add something there? Or? No, I don't see. Did you have you gonna say something?
No, I've got on 5.5 so far. We're happy to add anything that council would like.
Well, I don't know. I don't have a really good. I don't have a really good suggestion right off the top of my head, but maybe we can make a note and say that there's a there might need to be another subsection on this one. Just say another subsection I'll call them major infrastructure improvements or something like that. I mean, I guess you could look at something like, for example, the nursing station or the library. Okay, so these were projects that were undertaken by the municipality. Had they been under and the strategic plan said in both cases, yeah, we support these things and they're important, but where did we have the actual projects to expand them in our plan? I guess we just had it under the sections that referred to them as assets that we wanted to support, right? Or wanted to encourage that.
Yeah,
I don't know, what section of the old strategic plan did you cite when you provided a briefing note on that?
well, if you're talking about you're talking about the library and the nursing station, you're looking at building community, which is section 7.
Yeah, okay. Well, all right, I don't know, maybe I don't want to make this more complicated than it needs to be. Maybe we don't need to put anything there. I think that's something we could think about. Is there anything else that you want to do under number 5? All right, let's go to number 6 then, which is economic development. So what do we have for that one?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I just have a couple of very small
Sure.
points. Under 6.2, we do mention over under the metrics, improve broadband throughout Whitestone. So we were talking earlier about internet and stuff like that. It is mentioned in there. I just wanted to point that out.
Oh,
And also
okay.
6.2.2, right below it, it talks about seniors programming and that sort of thing.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it's in there already. Obviously, the rec committee and I think the library do a pretty good job of supporting seniors programming. Unfortunately, a lot of it in the past has been related to grants and things like that. I remember we used to have cooking classes with Jimmy and stuff like that, but that was all supported through a grant. And unfortunately, there seems to be this prevalent thing that you don't pay for programming, which is unique, I guess, to small rural communities. But anyway, we certainly have a big enough component of seniors in our community that somehow developing programming for them, which I guess is again mostly the library and the rec committee, right? I don't think it's so much council, but anyway, just wanted to point that out. Now, other than that, I have nothing on page 25, section 6. Other than I don't know what we do to do some of these things, right? It's nice to make general statements like this, but when you only have one, we may not even have one business from Whitestone that's even in the Chamber of Commerce. So we can do little incremental things in Whitestone, but we've always this whole area of economic development we've struggled with for years and years and years. We used to have an economic development committee, as the mayor would remember, and that sort of disbanded for lack of purpose and activity, and we've just never really been able to resurrect anything that's meaningful in terms of economic developments. But anyway, that's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else? Okay, well, I guess I have a few comments related to a couple of these. The first one, well, okay, I'll limit this to a couple. 6.4, collaborate with existing businesses. One of the things that the ECDEV committee, talked about doing and and actually started to do was to have what was initially a survey of existing businesses, and the survey was actually developed by somebody in the federal government. I don't remember who. And it was pretty complicated. And I remember when I first saw it, I said to Councillor Gorham Matthews, who was the chair of that committee, I said, well, you know, you're gonna have to have somebody go around and actually sit down and talk to the folks involved. And I actually offered to help them do that if they wanted at the time. This is a few years ago. But I still think that that's worth doing. I mean, it goes to Councillor Lamb's question, was well, how do you actually do these things? I mean, so update a current list of local businesses in the area, yes, but and we could help them get publicity. And in fact, the Welcome to Whitestone brochure that the Whitestone you know, the Whitestone committee does, you know, the old Hagerman ratepayers, they you know, they do that too. So there are opportunities for you to get listed and so on. But really, the question that the survey was designed to get at is what are your what are the difficulties that you have, and what, if anything, could the municipality do to assist you in addressing some of those things that make doing business difficult? I think that would be still worth doing, and it would help us to have a good inventory of who our local businesses are and what, you know, and kind of what their issues are. So that's, I mean, I'm almost inclined to put a 6.4.2 that says something like that. You know, whether, you know, I don't know whether it has to be, whether you call it a survey or what, but yeah, I'd say survey local businesses, read their needs and possible support or that kind of thing. Under 6.5, again, there's and I want to give the CAO an opportunity to comment on this, because there was a meeting this morning of the ACTEV committee, it was actually a strategic planning session, and the purpose of it was to sort of look at what happens going forward, because the FedNor funding that has funded that office and the ECDEV officer is running out, and so you know, I don't know. I think there should be something there, but I don't know what it is. And I'll leave that hang for 1 second. I'll just mention the last one. It says promote our commercial tax rate, and this already came up. Then the person responsible is the treasurer. So my question, of course, is what are we expecting the treasurer to do relative to this? I mean, I'm not sure that this is a. I'm not sure that that's something that the treasurer would normally do. I think it's, I mean, yeah, obviously he taxes businesses at the business properties at the same rate that you know, residential properties and others are taxed. But I'm not sure that he has a role in terms of promoting the tax rate, promoting Whitestone as a business destination. So anyway, those are a couple things. Maybe Madam CAO, perhaps you would want to comment on those.
Thank you, Mr.
The
Mayor.
last two, at least.
I'll start with the last one. You're right, I would see that as council CAO, our economic development officer, which is
I'm sorry,
response.
Michelle, I'm having some difficulty hearing you. I don't know if everybody else, but
Okay, is this better?
A little better, yes, thanks.
Okay, I thought I had the, I thought I had that fixed. So the, I agree, to promote the commercial tax rate, that would be members of council, CAO, something we can do in a communication strategy, and the economic development officer in Perry Sound, who supports all of the area municipalities and promotes the municipalities for what they have to offer. So we can change that up. In terms of supporting business and the work that was done this morning, we did have a facilitator come in and really just talk about economic development in general and where we think we're going to go. And each municipality, of course, is unique. The facilitator is going to contact each area municipality. In the case of Whitestone, it'll be you, Mr. Mayor, because you're on that committee as I am, and they want to talk to us, probably collectively, about economic development and what it means to Whitestone. And this is our chance to be part of this whole planning process and how does Whitestone link to the other municipalities and how we're unique. So there's a second meeting coming up near the end of May, but in between then, there'll be interviews with each area municipality. So that's our chance to talk about how Whitestone can be supported from an economic development perspective. And of course, it looks different than what Perry Sound is. So that's a work in progress.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
if I might follow up on what you said, since I was the one that introduced, I think 15 years ago, the commercial and the residential tax rate being the same, and I'm proud of that. It costs us nothing, by the way. There are very few commercial properties in Whitestone. I think it costs us $1,000 overall in terms of revenue. So, but I think optics sometimes are good. I mean, obviously the West Tech property and developing in Whitestone, certainly the tipping point wasn't our commercial rate, but I think our low tax rate played a role in that. And again, you have the CAO and the treasurer getting calls from time to time from people, and and just generally asking questions. So I think there is a role to play. And if you remember some years ago, and these have been long forgotten, but they exist, we spent $30,000 through the Economic Development Committee to develop a series of videos about Whitestone.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And, and I argued at the time, these are, spend all this money and then they're going to grow dust on a shelf. And that's exactly what's happened. But what was developed was pretty good. And we don't promote that. We don't use that. We don't put that on our website. We don't, there should be there. Maybe they are there and I'm just missing it. But all that work was done. And in there was mention of the low tax rate and that sort of thing. So that's something that I think staff needs to put as a bullet point to look at those things and resurrect them. I'm not saying redo them. They're still very vibrant. I talked about the fish derby and the agricultural fair and a bunch of stuff. They were very well done. So that's one thing. I'll tell you one thing that I think can be done in the economic development area, which I think is pretty simplistic. If you look at any time on Facebook or some of these other social media sites, there are literally dozens of people saying, well, I need a plumber. Anyone know a good plumber? Oh, I need wood. Where do I get wood? How do I, who does decks? Who lifts cottages? Who, whatever, right? And of course, people say, this, that, oh, that guy does it, and there's no reason we couldn't, have someone, and again, maybe not this year, get a list of all the people within Whitestone who do all these things, and simply make a list up of carpenters and plumbers and electricians and whatever, and put it as a one sheet, not promoting any one person or whatever. Put it as a sheet that might be able to be plasticized by the homeowner and put on a refrigerator or something, so that when they need someone, they can go down to that list. That's in our little rural area is a good way to promote our businesses, and it's a simplistic way. So I would put that as a suggestion. And I'm sure if we thought there's other little things that we can do along that line to better. The other thing is it's a whole plethora of home-based businesses that we talk about in here. And the longer time goes on, the more there are more home-based businesses, whether they're selling jewelry or whether they're selling, you know, food stuff, or, you know, I'm thinking some of the people in our community, and, you know, that's a whole nother subset of our economy. And I don't know how we can help them promote their small businesses, right? Maybe we give the community center for free for these little, I don't know what you call them, wherever all the vendors come into the community center and apply their wares. So anyway, those are just some of the ideas that came to mind, Mr. Mayor, when you brought your comments up. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I think Councillor Woods wanted to get in.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just one quick one. When I guess it would fit in here somewhere, somebody tell me where they think it would fit best, but when we have a new business open in the municipality, I think we should have like a ribbon cutting ceremony or a welcome to the community by members of staff and council, congratulating someone for opening a new business in the community. I think it would go a long way in supporting and promoting anyone trying to open businesses here, like a brick and mortar style business opportunity.
Good idea.
Good suggestion, thank you. I like that. Okay, anything else that you want to note under Act Dev? Good, if not, we will keep going to number 7, which is building community, and this one has a lot of, it has the largest number of items under it. And then we still will have, when we finish that, we will have number 8, which is the new high level objective we added related to the official plan. So what do we got for, this is page 26 and page 27 of your handout.
I got a couple. I'll go first. I generally do here. So the one thing that I've mentioned, and I don't know, maybe I've missed it somewhere else, but during the election, we talked about what would you do for the agricultural people and the rural, you know, farming element and that sort of thing. And we talked about, we would come up with whatever, an annual meeting or an annual way to converse with them, an annual way to sit down in either an open house or some sort of a Zoom meeting or whatever, where we would ask, you know, that segment of our population, you know, what's important to them, what are we not doing that we could do, that sort of thing. So I think we need to build in something to do with agricultural activities in their broadest sense, right? And anyway, that was one comment that I had. The other thing that, and I mentioned it at another meeting, when I don't know how you do this in terms of a program, but when I was up again last fall and whatever up in the Ardbeg Center, I was there several times to the for instance, the third, I'm sorry about that, my computer's going off. I was up several times in there to the music on Thursday nights and this sort of thing. And it's of course wonderful, right, to listen to everybody sort of jam in the community hall, or even dinners in the community hall, et cetera. And it always hit me is, you know, we have different segments of our population, but certainly the biggest one is the local, more rural community and taxpayer and ratepayer, and of course the seasonal people. And I thought, oh my God, you know, most seasonal people don't even know that this is occurring, let alone would get in their car and go up to Ardbeg. And I thought, boy, one of those jam sessions should probably be in the community center. So in other words, programs for the seasonal people to understand more of the local people and vice versa. So that's something that I want to explore a little more. If we're dealing with the second page, which is 27, and when it comes to promote health and safety, nurse practitioner-led clinic, this is always a difficult one for council, because of course we don't run the clinic, it's under the healthcare system and ultimately Don Sanderson and that group. But there are issues, even though we've done a fabulous, spectacular job at the nurses station, renovating it, expanding it, and all first class. And congratulations to everyone involved, including Michelle, who was our project manager. But there are issues there. There are issues that our own citizens can't get appointments. And if you have a doctor, and this may not be Don Sanderson, it might be the province, I don't know. If you have a doctor in town, you can't get an appointment at our nurse practitioner for the life of you. You want blood work and you're a senior, you got to go to Parry Sound. We've always struggled with the hours of the clinic. Maybe that might be fixed a little bit under the expanded format. But we've always, again, we have a room in there that an extra nurse practitioner could stay in, for instance, in the summer. There's always been this drive, I guess, to have more hours, particularly on Saturdays and Sundays, through the 8 weeks in the summer. So those are all issues. And I think, so I guess what I'm getting at is it's more than just the physical building. And so I don't know how we lobby or do whatever, or put these issues down and send a letter from council. If indeed, when we track them down, they are real issues. Sometimes I'm going on what people tell me. I don't use the nurses station that often, but I think something has to be built into 7.9 with respect to that. My final comment, and I'm done for the day probably, is 7.5. It says, consider community improvement programs. I think, again, when it comes to Dunchurch, we've done a lot of things, we're getting rid of not a lot of buildings, but buildings. I think generally the Dunchurch area looks a lot cleaner and better now than it did a few years ago. But anyway, I did put down beside 7.5 where it said consider community improvement programs. I said, like what? And a question mark. I don't know what they are. So anyway, that's the end of me. And it's only 4:35, so that's pretty good. So thank you.
All right, thank you. I will just comment on it with respect to the nursing station. Just so everybody knows, there is an official opening of the, and I'm sure you'll get a notice of this, but there, because the council will of course be invited, an official opening of the expanded nursing station, which is set for 1 p.m. on Sunday, the 21st of May. And they chose that, the committee chose that time because they were thinking that there might be some, possibly some members of the community who are seasonal residents, but who are here for that and would attend. And it'll just be a little celebration or whatever, but there will be an opportunity coming out of this opening for us to discuss the questions that you're raising in terms of staffing and services and that sort of thing. And I go back to one of the original meetings that we had some years ago, when this was just an idea. There was a meeting that a couple of us attended with Don Sanderson, and there was a kind of a, his question to us was, well, would you be willing to expand the facility itself, which we've done. And our question to him was, would you be willing to staff it accordingly? And his answer was, yes, I believe we can do that. So, and I know that, it's a problem with healthcare everywhere, that there's not enough resources, not enough human resources. In just about any part of healthcare that you want to look at, but nevertheless, I think that's a discussion we need to have, and hopefully the goal of this is that there will be more services offered to more people, and if necessary, we maybe there's some push that can be made. As you know, the province has allocated some additional funding for things such as home visits by paramedics. You probably have heard about that one. That's a program that is running in West Parry Sound now. And, they're taking an existing resource and expanding their mandate to it, to include doing some things that bringing some healthcare to people who are essentially in remote areas. So, I want to be optimistic about that. But anyway, I just wanted to mention to you that the opening is happening in May. The official opening. It's been open pretty much throughout. But anyway, anything else about? So there's some other items on this list that you want to.
Mr. Mayor, two things. There is an additional item, and that's 7.10, which is prepare for emergencies. And that was an additional item. What I had thought, I put some wording in there about some general wording about our obligation. There's some work being done by our CEMC and possibly our alternate CEMC, Councillor Bray, to transition our current emergency plan to one that looks very similar to the remainder of the West Parry Sound emergency plans and integrating the IMS system. So I need to connect with Kathy Whitman on that. So I'm happy to add in an action plan that really is, I believe, is underway already. And then council will see that when this comes back for review. I don't know if Councillor Bray knows anything about that work going on, if you're participating.
Ray, did you want to
I don't have any other information for you, no.
Okay.
But I think it's important that we do look at when the time comes, look at the plan and figure out so that we all know what our role and what our responsibilities are. Yeah, I agree.
Okay. I just noticed down in the chat window that a member of the public is asking if they can make a comment. I just wanted to let everyone be aware of that there.
Let me see. Margie is online. Okay, I did notice that she joined us, I guess around 4 o'clock or so, but well, why not? I want to reward people who take the time and travel to join these meetings. So Margie, please go ahead.
Hi, everyone. How are you?
Good.
Hang in
Good.
there.
Sorry, I wasn't here till 4. I had mistaken the start time. I thought it was 4. But Anyway, I really enjoy some of the conversation, but I just wanted to make one little comment regarding building community. I think you guys know that I started here back in 2003 with a building lot, and at that time, I guess we would be under the seasonal category. As time progressed, I spent more and more time here, and since retired, we virtually spend most of our time up there. My biggest problem is I can't figure out what the difference is between seasonal and permanent. I think those are the words that you use, because to be quite honest, I'm not sure what makes that definition. And I think over the time it has created a lot of division. I tend to call myself a tweener. I do have another place, but I by vast majority spend most of my time in Whitestone. And I'm wondering if that's something in our strategic plan in terms of building community that needs to kind of be built in. That the fact is everybody pays their taxes based on a 12-month basis. It seems kind of unusual to me that people can be called seasonal when they pay taxes 12 months a year. And quite honestly, my observations, particularly in the last several years, have led me to believe that now that the 400 is open well past Perry Sound, people that were once really only up here in the summer because that's when they could get up here easily are now here year round, winter, spring, summer, fall, because they're just a quick 2-hour hop north of Toronto. So that was my one comment. Any thoughts about that?
Councillor Ray. I'll let-
Mr. Mayor, through you, I think that she's speaking to 7.3 where it says in brackets both seasonal and permanent, and we have taken that out of a lot of places. So perhaps maybe we should do that as well for 7.3 because we do seek to promote community engagement for everyone.
I kind of think it's kind of an artificial division, to be perfectly honest.
I mean, I was wanting other people to comment first, but I mean, I think my own view of it was, and I think we did have some discussion on council about this back a few years ago, was we didn't want it to be a dividing point. I certainly did not want it to be a dividing point. And without telling war stories or anything, I can, I'm one of these people who in my early days came here for the 2 months. Why? Because it took us 9 hours to get here from Toronto. And the last bit of it was we had to go across water because there was no road to this property that we're on. And so, we were very much dependent on a small number of local people. We could not have we could not have very well made use of our place at all if it weren't for those people. And you would recognize their names. They're Bennett's, Gorhams, Sticklands, Bottrells, and I have to say they really welcomed us to this community. We were visiting them all the time and getting things from them, and they were always interested in what we were doing and what we needed, and they were always helpful, very generous, very kind, and that's part of what made Whitestone a very special place. So it bothered me when I would sense that people were trying to create a divide and say, well, we've got seasonal people over here, we've got permanent people. And of course, there's a lot in between, a lot of very in between. And what you see is the story that you said, Margie, for yourself is, I think, the story of many, many people who started to come here as vacationers and then later on said, yeah, I want to live here permanently. And maybe it's their only place, or maybe you'll have a pied a terre in more than one place. Some of us do, but we now are spending time all year. It's not like a 2 month in the summer thing. Started out that way, but at least for me, but it's now, we're here all year, back and forth, and so, I think it's a reality, and you have to take into consideration that not everybody is here all the time, but we should, and my final comment, I don't want to drag this out, but my final comment is that we're seeing this even in the rec committee with some activities. We have folks who are essentially cottagers, but there's some of the programs that are being held in the community center and the library that are just, for getting people together, have attracted folks, including some young people who gave them something extra to do with their time when they're here on not just in the summer, but on weekends throughout the rest of the year and so on. And they were actually coming out to the activities and participating. And so it gives us an opportunity to plan for things that will try to get the whole community together. And probably this goes back to probably this goes back to Councillor Lamb's comment about the activities at Loggers and our big community club. When I was a kid, we were always invited to those things, and we quite often participated. In fact, one time there was a church in Whitestone, and they used to have a strawberry social and things like that. And we would make an effort to go to those things just because it was you want to be part of the community of the people that you're living with and who are helping you and so on. So anyway, it's a good point. I think we should take this, we should take references to division and any hints of divisiveness out of what we're
Thank you. I appreciate that. The second comment that I had is really a little bit along the same theme, and it is, what are we doing as a community to encourage that transition from people that perhaps started out here loving Whitestone on a less than year-round basis and want to move in that direction. So at one point, I know in your 2003 one, there was specific references to encouraging year-round residential growth. And I don't really see it in there, and I might have missed it, and I missed the first part of the meeting, so I apologize if it was discussed there. But when you look at both building community and when you look at maintenance of infrastructure, I wonder if there is any place in our strategic plan for that. I think you all know that my concern in that regard is Schwanaga Lake Road. I think there may be others in the community, but certainly people that want to be here year round have made it, have done that, have found ways to make that happen, even against great odds. And I'm wondering if there is a way to recognize that in the strategic plan and help people to, with infrastructure and encouraging with the way that we build community, to encourage our year-round population. So that was just the two comments that I had. And I just wanted to make sure that I supported you in the effort of developing the strategic plan. So thank you for this opportunity.
Okay, thanks, Margie. I will see if anybody else wants to address your other concerns.
Yeah,
Other concerns.
If I might through you, Mr. Mayor,
Go
it
ahead.
was just wanting to point out that we had, way back on page 3 of 14 at the very beginning under mission statement. We'd actually updated one of the line items in the mission statement to read, "We will create and support initiatives to include all residents and visitors in contributing to the betterment of the community." That was one of the spots where we had updated it, as before it had said both permanent and seasonal. So I think we'd gone through the document where we have where we could have and updated it to read inclusive of all people. So I think we've tried to address what Margie was saying in many instances. Wherever we could, we did change some of the words throughout the document in the first revision several months ago. That was all I had to say about it.
Do you think that there needs to be an item that where we at least look at what is, again, kind of along the lines of what we were talking about with respect to businesses earlier, trying to figure out what the rough points are that people are experiencing, accessing their properties and that kind of thing. I don't know. Is there anything more that we need to do?
Perhaps the word you're searching for, Mr. Mayor, is barriers.
Barriers, yeah. Okay, thank you. Okay, does anybody think we should try to capture that somewhere? I don't know exactly where it would be, but
Mayor, I just had a quick question. That's
go
okay.
ahead, Councillor Woods. Yeah.
I'm strictly just asking this because I think it's a good one for right now. Do we have like a welcome to Whitestone package that would be given to someone that recently bought a property, whether it be, a seasonal home or a year-round home? Do we do anything like that?
That's a good question. And it's come up before too, and I don't know. There was some work done on it. I'm gonna ask our CAO clerk about it. There was some work that was done, I'm pretty sure. But I don't know, like, I know people get those the little brochure that the Whitestone Conservation Association, puts out, right? But
I can answer that, Mr. Mayor. We just before the pandemic, we started the Welcome to Whitestone package. Paul has just popped into my office, and it exists. And I need to check with staff to see where we are with it. We've had banks put together, and there was a little bit of a mug and some pens and all sorts of brochures with Welcome to Whitestone. But that's a good point. I'm going to look to see where we are. We do get new residents, and we know who they are because they come in looking for a landfill pass and blue box. So I'll make sure that has restarted. If it, in fact, maybe it is, and I'm just not aware of it because the frontline staff will maybe doing it already. But good point.
okay, thank you. I don't know if we can capture that somewhere. Maybe we should try to put it somewhere in here. I'll leave it to you, Madam CAO, and our secretary to figure out where the right place is. I did want to, if I could, go back to the 7.10 one, because I think that was one of the ones that I commented on, and we being the Emergency Management Committee, I guess, kind of, indirectly made a commitment to go to IMS. You've already heard about this. The incident management system is a system that is used by emergency coordinators throughout Ontario, and it basically ensures that you have a standard terminology and I guess methodology to a large extent, although each municipality's emergency plan is supposed to be unique to take into consideration the, the resources that you have and everything, but and at least there's a common terminology so that everybody, because quite often what happens in reality in an emergency is that you have folks from various agencies and even other municipalities. Like if we had an emergency in Whitestone, undoubtedly the LPP would be involved, maybe the MNR would be involved, maybe Parry Sound EMS would be involved, and possibly some of the other fire and rescue services in the area. And maybe some folks, some government, from Ontario government folks as well. And it's helpful if everybody sort of knows this has a common terminology. That's the real reason. And the rest of West Parry Sound is basically has made this transition to IMS, and we were still using an older template for this. So that's what that was all about. But the other thing that that's an item under that, I'd call that 7.10.1 if you like, but there's another item that I think needs to be there, which is it's a I would describe it as looking at our at our emergency resources and the I mean, I guess it's really what I'm interested in is the resiliency of it. If there is an emergency like let's use an example. There's a train derailment in Ardbeg where there is a fire that comes and forces us to evacuate some people, and it would probably come from the west, the west side of the municipality towards the east. What are the things that we would need to have? And there are some resources like communication capability, for example. This gets back to our internet discussion. Communication capability that are really quite critical, and those we ought to make sure that we have certain things in place that are necessary to sustain the operations in an emergency, and these include things like reliable electric power, reliable communication, reliable internet, radios and all these kinds of things. So that's something that I think we need to take a look at, and we may be able to get some assistance again from the government in regards to this. I'll just mention something that may be of interest. It may not mean anything to you, but means a fair bit to me. The emergency management function within the government of Ontario has, in the last year, less than the last year, has been moved from the Ministry of the Solicitor General, which is where the OPP is, for example, and the coroner and one, into Treasury Board. And I talked to the deputy minister who was at this was at the Roma conference, I guess. I talked to the deputy minister who's responsible for heading this up, and his explanation was that they wanted to be where they could get access to funding for things. And they spent a fair bit of time talking in the session about things that they can do for municipalities to assist in things like evacuations, for example, you know, which is a common occurrence. So anyway, I don't want to go any further on it, but I think that we should be looking at the resources that we have that are that we would use to support in a local emergency and the resilience of them. You know, in other words, do we let's say we were going to temporarily locate people that had been evacuated into the community center in Dunchurch. Could we be sure that there would be, you know, that there would be heat and light and water and communication and all those kinds of things, you know? So anyway, I would propose that be 7.1.7, what, 7.10.2 or something like that. And it's just that, I mean, I think it's, again, just like, there's nothing in the, I'm not at the point of saying there should be something in the budget for it, but there's, I think some effort should go into thinking about it and figuring out what we might need. How well we're positioned at the moment. Councillor Bray.
Yes, I just want to comment on that a little bit too, that this really goes along with our climate change resiliency. I don't know if everybody remembers the flooding that we had quite a few years ago, right at the bridge, and then at some of the lower lying areas that we ended up doing a lot of sandbagging. So I think it's important to note that and then we had the tornado last year or the year before, sorry, I can't remember. So we have had some times. We also had the time when the tornado went through, probably south of us, hit Algonquin Park quite badly, but put out the power here for in some of the remote areas for about 4 days. So we may have people who will need extra services, and we really need to be able to mobilize what we need to do fairly quickly. And especially since we have a more senior population, and we have people that may have medical issues and things like that. So I would agree that we spend a little bit of time on this, as well as spend a little bit more time on public awareness and all of council reviewing the plan and participating in an exercise to understand what it means. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So is there anything else on this in this section that you would like to talk about?
Mr. Mayor, as you know, we added another strategic initiative, which was low youth planning. I created some wording around the 4 important pieces that came from that discussion: update official plan, planning services and process, attainable housing and lake planning, and that's 8.1, 2, 3, and 4. I did not do an action plan on those simply because there hadn't been any robust discussion on those items. So you may want to talk about that a little bit too as we wrap up the action plan process. Although I must say we've and I assume this will be for another meeting. We haven't really yet to set priorities, and I appreciate what Councillor Lamb said in terms of timelines, but I think staff, if you are setting priorities, we can help with the timelines, but we need a sense of what council's desire is on that.
Okay, well, thank you. I was just gonna get to that, and I've gone back to pull out what. I mean, I don't know if we could perhaps go through quickly. We do have time, I believe. take a look at item 8 at the high level, which is on page 17 of 27. So 8.1 says update official plan and zoning bylaw. And let's go through them quickly. 8.2, it talks about planning services and process. And again, this is, I think there are a couple of variables in here that are currently beyond our control, but as I think everyone knows, we have our current planner, John Jackson, has indicated that he will be retiring in the fall. And I guess we don't know at this stage of the game how that will affect the Parry Sound Area Planning Board. If it does affect the planning board, then that'll affect the process. But there are other things, assuming the planning board continues more or less as it is, then there are, still some things that we may want to do from that point of view, and the municipality will undoubtedly have to retain a planner or a planning firm, probably not the one that the planning board uses, but anyway, so that's what that one is about. 8.3 attainable housing, just to see, again, I can suggest an item here. Perhaps sounds a little bit similar to the one I mentioned a minute ago with respect to the emergency capabilities. And then the lake planning, which is kind of a piece of the land use planning. Well, it's kind of a piece of 8.1, but it's been pulled as a separate piece to develop a strategy. So, and I think the big thing that we have to decide, and maybe we don't have to decide it today, but with respect to 8.1 and 8.4, I guess what we really need to do is to try to get this organized. It's likely that we won't get very much. I mean, in terms of like going through the official plan and starting to make revisions to it, I don't know how much of that's going to get done in 2023. But it would be kind of nice if we could get organized and figure out how we're going to do it, what reuse of external resources we're going to make, and how we're going to involve the community in some of those other questions. So I guess what I would like to do, if possible today, would be to go through and figure out if we can put some action items under, at least the ones that we're going to do in the short term, under those headings of 8.1 through 8.4.
Well, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Lamb, just in general, I had mentioned, of course, early on, the things I thought should be addressed in 2023. In terms of the official plan,
We have to buy another.
and then, of course, the resulting zoning bylaw after that, I don't think we should be putting on our plate until at minimum the second quarter, say, of 2024. I think we have to, this fall, get a new planning regime of whatever. And I think in terms of that, we better get started really quick, because by the time we put a request for proposal out to 4 or 5 different planning groups and get those in and possibly interview them and make a decision as to who's going to take over after Labor Day. We're into May now, so that has to, the whole replacement of John Jackson has to take place ASAP, really, or needs to be started ASAP. Once that person or group or whatever comes on in the fall, again, I think, there's prep work to be done on an official plan. And I think they could do that through the fall and early next year. And I see us getting into the official plan review sometime after we kind of address the major budget items in the first quarter. In terms of the Perry Sound Planning Board, in a brief conversation as the chair with John Jackson, I think he probably has a little more flexibility than a September 1st sort of termination from the planning board, and he probably would stay on as some sort of resource. So we're going to have to look at that, but I would see us replacing John on difficult files anyway, sometime this fall. Of course, Patrick Christie will stay on, is the plan, and at this point, so there will be a continuity there. Anyway, so that I'm just speaking to the 8.1 and the 8.2. I really don't have any comments on 8.3 or 8.4 at this point. Thank you.
So if I can, just to capture what you said, would you agree that there should be an 8.2.1, which is essentially issue RFP for planning services?
As soon as possible. Yeah, May or June at the latest.
All right, so we've got something to go under 8.2.
And I think one has to consult with John Jackson and Patrick Christie, who obviously can give us some leads as to, who we should be including in that RFP process, right?
Yes.
And who we shouldn't or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, and I think so. That if I could go back to 8.1 for a second, is there anything that you think needs to be done immediately with respect or that we should try to complete in 2023, I guess, with respect to the actual update of the OP and the zoning bylaw, or should or can we leave that for now?
Well, I think once assuming we pick someone to take over after Labor Day, I think a task that we would put to our planner or planning group or whatever is we're going to start to update our official plan, whatever it is, Q2 of 2024. So they're the ones that have to do the hard work and slugging of reviewing our current plan, of looking at other plans, of discussing perhaps in the fall with council, what if any initial or macro thoughts they may have, either on the process or detail of it, and then they go off and do their work, and then they, I guess, come forward. We have a series of whatever public meetings or whatever in 2024. But I think it would be unrealistic to start, let's start the official plan review in November of this year or October or something when they first come on. So that's just the way I see it. So anyway.
Well, okay, so if I were going to try and capture that, I would maybe say something like, engage, under 8.1.1, I would say engage assistance of the planning resource acquired under 8.2.1 in sort of organizing for review of POP and zoning bylaw. How about that?
Sure.
I'm just trying to capture something so that if we, and that would help to communicate to the public what what we sort of think the sequence of events is, or is, because there clearly is a dependency here. Anyway, is there somebody, are there any other comments on,
Yeah. If I might through you, Mr. Mayor?
go ahead.
Thank you. It was just under, I think what you've both suggested under 8.1 and 8.2 would work doing. I think it's very important that we need to get a tender out and get some RFPs out, I'll call it. For 8.4, I don't know if we can just go back to the wording there a little bit and then I'll say my comment. I know right now we have, and I should have brought it up earlier, but I didn't, so I apologize. It says lake planning with guidance from both the Whitestone Environmental Stewardship Committee and professional environmental consultants. We will develop and implement a lake planning strategy that will identify opportunities to protect the physical, environmental, and social values of our lakes and systems. And I think what a part of what lake planning is the protection, but there's many other items of lake planning that aren't the protection, but actually the use of the lakes. And what I might think, if this might work with other members of council, is just eliminating a few of the words in that and just having something that would read under lake planning. Develop lake planning strategies that will identify the physical, environmental, and social values of our lakes and river systems. Just make it a little more simplified for now until we know what that strategy will be. So again, I might think of a wording again, I'll just reread it. Develop lake planning strategies that will identify the physical, environmental, and social values of our lakes and river systems. And with that said, I do think it's important that we need to put out for an RFP for professional services for somebody that would do the lake planning. Now that might be the same firm as the lake or as our new planner, but I know one item that we have in the budget this year was for water testing, I'll call it lake water testing. And I think that initiative would fall under some of the lake planning items. So I'd put under an 8.4.1 that we need to put out request for professional services, and under 8.4.2 that in the year 2023 that will undertake to start some of the water testing on the lakes. And I know, through maybe our environmental stewardship committee, we might be able to talk about it at a committee level a little bit of what we'd like to see, but I really think a lot of that will come from our professional planner as to how many times a lake should be tested a year, to how often we get a report, all that kind of stuff. So I think it's great that right now we have 15 grand in the budget, but I think it's an important thing that we need to start to undertake as soon as we can to start getting that data, because I believe a lot of the data that we get when we do some lake planning will end up being a big part or a substantial part of some of the items in our official plan, and maybe any updates to the zoning bylaws.
Okay, thank you for that. I would just a couple of observations here. I'm okay with your wording of the with your rewording of the sort of high level point under 8.4. But I would add the following words at the end of it. When you got to the end where you said values of our lakes and river systems, I would put comma and their planning implications. And the reason that I would add those words is that I mean, this is the lake plans result in pieces of they become pieces of the official plan. In our existing official plan, there is a lake specific lake and river specific part for every lake or uh, or river portion, right? And they're different to take into account the fact that the lakes are different. So
That's a good point, Mr. Mayor. That wording is good that you've added.
the other I guess so I have now, I have 8.4.1 is request for professional services. The in our RFP or whatever for professional services. The comment I would make is that the person that you're talking about here, I think, is probably not necessarily the planner that's doing the official plan. Especially if you're going to look at the whole question of water testing, like planners would not, that's not something where you would have, where the planner would have the expertise. That's something where an environmental consultant would have the expertise. And I'm not opposed to putting this under here, but I guess, you had an item that was sort of like start water quality testing or whatever. I would say that that money that you referred to that is in the budget, I believe, that was intended to do precisely that this year so that we could figure out what water testing should be done and what it'll take to get it done in various other places. Now we won't get it done everywhere, everything that we think needs to be done everywhere this year. But I would simply point out there is already water testing going on and on some lakes. And I think I said this before in the budget meeting, but I would reiterate my concern that we don't just turn that off when we try to figure out what we want to do everywhere, because that results in a hole in the data, and the importance of the data, the consistency of the data is a very high importance. You want to see trends that are going on, and so you don't typically say, well, okay, we'll just not do it for a year. If you started something, you want to keep doing it, and you want to keep doing it in the same location, the same tests in the same locations, essentially, so that you can track the data over time. And I mean, I'll use Washkish as an example. There's been water quality testing, 2 types. Well, there are now 3 types going on with the benthic monitoring. So there's 3 types of monitoring that are three different sort of categories of testing that are going on. They've been going on for quite a few years, and so there's a buildup of data over a large enough period of time that you can see, you can see trends that are emerging. And I know we have that for some other lakes too, where there's been testing going on in Whitestone, there's been testing going on in Warmer, and so we do have that data for some other lakes. So I don't know. I'm not sure what the 8.4.2 item is. Is it 8.4.1 is presumably we get the assistance of a consultant who's going to help us decide what should happen going forward, and what it would take to extend it to the various lakes. But 8.4.2 is, I'm assuming, is something like continuing the planning that's in process. So I don't know. I mean, did I missing something, or?
No, through you, Mr. Mayor. I think you've summarized it quite well. And yeah, I think it would be, as you'd said, an environmental engineering firm or something like that for that 8.4.1. And I think what I was trying to refer to simply is the 8.4.2 might be, once we've engaged somebody, is hopefully have them, in this year, maybe it's the fall of this year and into 2024 and beyond, start that testing, which I'm assuming would be, you know, your phosphorus testing, your oxygen testing, your pH, and your set sheet disc. I know we might have missed the spring turnover before we can get somebody in for the phosphorus, but maybe they could pick something up in the fall. So I think it was just noting that we should do that. And I do think, you know, continuing with what you've said, anybody that's already doing water testing, there's many volunteers that do good jobs on it. I wouldn't for one minute think to stop anything that anybody's doing. I just think by getting in, you know, a professional service under the municipality will help us in our official plan and lake planning strategy coming from an independent third party, I'll call it, right? That's the only reason, which I think we're all agreeing with. So thanks.
Okay. All right, a little note here. All right, is there anything else anybody wants to raise with respect to these? There's one we haven't talked about at all, which is 8.3, but before we. So we're getting a little bit of detail. So 8.3.1. And there is a provincial policy statement on this, as you have heard. And I don't know what's reasonable. I don't have straight in my mind, at least, what I think is reasonable in terms of an outcome. But I guess my suggestion for, say, and maybe an 8.3.1 would be to put some effort, and I don't know who would do this, whether I mean, there's various options, I guess. We could you know, we could get a little task force together to do it, or we could ask staff to do it, although I'm not sure that isn't an unreasonable expectation of given all the other things our staff have to do. But to try to figure out if there were, and it's kind of like at the strategy level, really asking the question, are there things that we could do? Are there opportunities that would exist for us to create some attainable housing in, and you know, it could be rental housing, it could be, you know, it could be lots of options. It could be, you know, small housing, it could be some of these creative things, or, you know, but are there opportunities that would exist for us to provide some additional housing that is attainable and affordable, attainable in the municipality, and what would it take to do it? You know, and maybe these opportunities, there might be some incentive for someone to actually take a piece of property and build something on it, right? You know, that and you know, generate income from it, you know, that kind of thing. Or there might be, you know, it's not necessarily the municipality is going to start building houses. I don't think that's I don't think anybody expects that to happen, but buying land and building houses on it. But you know, what could we do to cause something to happen that you know, in fact, helps us to solve a problem that we recognize already, which is that there isn't much housing available. You know, there isn't a lot in any price category, I suppose. But you know, we have people who we need to hire people to work in the municipality. They gotta have a place to live if they're not already here, and if they're coming from somewhere else. It's a big question. You know, that all of the heads of council in West Parry Sound talk about this anytime they, you know, they get together for anything. Like, where do these people, where are the people we want to hire, where are they going to live? and businesses have the same issue. So, I don't know, I would like to put something there that simply says we'll strategize, and my question is, I don't know who we is. Strategize, sort of
Mr.
opportunity.
Mayor,
Yes,
I think one of the things that we can do is when we are updating the official plan and the zoning bylaws, one of the things is to look for barriers for certain kinds of housing. So I'm not sure what's in our zoning bylaw around second suites or small tiny homes or anything like that. But if there are barriers, then obviously people will not be able to take advantage of those things. Then the other thing that we could also do is and since I'm on the DSAB board, being aware of funding opportunities that come through the federal government and the provincial government, that we would probably, if it was for some kind of housing or incentives, would be to usually you access them through the DSAB if that is where the funding is coming. It's where it always has in the past, and that's something that I know a little bit about. And so being aware of funding resources, and also I think too, partly if we just look at some of our other municipalities on some of the things that they've done, there may be something that will work within our municipality. And so I think it's just being aware of what's happening around us. Thanks.
thank you very much for that, Councillor Ray. I now have two more. I have an 8.3.1, which I'm just making some notes here. Which I call strategize opportunities. 8.3.2 is identify barriers to attainable housing in our official plan and zoning bylaw. That's a good one. And 8.3.3 is consult with DSAB and the other municipalities in West Parry Sound. Because they actually, some of them are working on this.
And Mr. Mayor, quite a few years ago, we had a housing forum that was quite interesting and did have a few people, a few developers present and sort of give ideas of what they could do. I think it's important that we continue with that. And I think it was actually the economic development officer for the region that organized that forum. And I'm sorry, I can't remember what year it was.
Yeah, no, I remember it, dear, now that you mention it. Yeah, and that may be, well, I don't know if that's, I'm gonna make a little note myself to just about that. Let's put housing forum. I don't know if we need to capture it in our official plan, but
And
I'm pretty sure that this has come up, and I seem to recall a conversation with Ann McDermott about this not too long, it would have been last year, but so I know there's other people that are, and this is the mayor of Seguin I'm talking about.
and
Go ahead.
if I might, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm gonna have to cut off the call in about 15 minutes. I just noticed the time. I'm not trying to push everybody along or anything, but if it goes past that, I'm just gonna have to cut off. So if you see me leave the meeting, that's the reason why. There's just one quick comment I had about 8.3. And I think two things that we might want to think about for a point, or maybe it's a point for the future, Mr. Mayor, would just be thinking of if we did have some way of doing some attainable housing, what locations would it be? Would it be, on waterfront areas? Would it be on rural residential areas or rural areas or somewhere zoned commercial? I think we might want to look to that as a municipality to find out what areas would you look for affordable housing in. And then just one other point is really just to remind everybody, which might play some impact on it. As part of that new bill 21 or 23 that passed last fall about development, something was passed that allows all lots to have up to 3 residential units on it now. So I think that's something that we might want to just look at and get maybe some information from one of our planners on. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Good comments. All right, maybe this is a good point to ask if we're coming up to about 5:30. Oh, 5:40, 5:37. Is there anything else that you want to say about 8? Have we got enough for now?
Yes.
I'm hearing a yes. So the only thing that I wondered about, and maybe the strategy, somebody said, well, we can do this at another meeting, but I'm wondering, and I don't know that it has to be a separate meeting like this, but I'm just wondering, we didn't talk a lot other than the comments that Councillor Lamb and I made at the beginning about sort of priorities, but do we need to revisit the subject of prioritization, or can we just go ahead and capture what we've done today and then come back and sort of agree on what we expect to get accomplished in 2023 at least, and what's going to take longer?
Well, again, Mr. Mayor, just maybe my notes or notes were taken what I said, and I think this is, if we can achieve all this year, I think we're pretty good. But someone mentioned, or I mentioned, the trailer bylaw. You mentioned the animal bylaw. I don't know where that sits. Obviously, the procedural bylaw, which is important. The strategic plan, which is what we're doing now. The John Jackson sort of replacement and the planning areas is a big one. I'll call it the parking bylaw, but fees and parking and that kind of thing, and the short-term rental. And so those are the things I had. There may be more, but we would have to be careful not to load too much up. We're unfortunately heading towards the summer when things tend to slow down a little bit. But if we could accomplish those things by the end of the year, plus any other initiatives that may come up on an ongoing basis, I think we're doing pretty good. And I think you can slot. We talked about the official plan when we would kind of sort of start into that. And I think the rest of it, a lot of it's ongoing, and staff can fill in some of the timing, I think, for us. So, but those are my comments. Thank you.
All right, well, thanks. So I guess I'll just put the question to you. Are you willing? I think we've made pretty good progress. I'm happy with it. Are you willing to reconvene and wrap things up for today? And we'll with the comments that have been made and the changes that have been made, and we'll look for the next version to come out when staff have a chance to do the next set of changes.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt, but yeah, I'm happy with what's been accomplished. I think we've pretty much covered everything. I really don't see another separate meeting to deal with this. I would hope that we as a group can maybe, in less than a half hour, wrap it up the next time we meet, maybe even as part of a regular council meeting at, the first of the meeting, right? Or the first of the month, I should say, right? versus another separate sort of meeting, but if it's separate ones available, then I'm okay with it, but I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel at the next one. I think it's just saying, hey, we agree with it, looks like a good plan. I think we'll talk more at the next plan as to how we're going to communicate this, right? That's
Yeah.
you know, that's important to me, right? So anyway, okay,
Sure.
thank you.
All right. If there's no other comment on the sort of the nitty gritty here, can I get a motion to reconvene to a regular meeting, please? I see Councillor Woods moves and seconded by,
One second.
okay, that was Councillor Lamb, right?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I am. And the time is 5:42. I guess, Madam CAO, if you want, you can't, I can't. Oh, well, sorry, I can see everybody who's got a camera on, so I'm not missing anybody. All right, forget it. Not gonna help. Somehow I thought, okay, I'm not seeing everybody's face, but that's. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded that we reconvene. All those in favor, indicate. Anybody opposed? Okay, we are back in regular session. Thank you. And the matters arising out of the committee of the whole, I think, are simply that staff will take what they've captured from this discussion and bring it back to us as soon as they're ready for further consideration at a regular council meeting. So I don't think we need a resolution for that unless you want one, Madam CAO.
Excuse me, no, I think that we're good. I think the direction was clear. We're going to tidy up the strategic plan and the action plan based on all the comments today. I would say that we are looking at probably the 1st of June. The May 16th meeting will be a final budget meeting. So I'm not sure we'll be able to combine that strategic plan with the final budget meeting along with some planning matters that we have. So we'll aim for the first meeting in June to bring this back to council to a regular council meeting and some clarity on priorities and timelines other than what's been stated today. So we'll put it all in writing. And that said, we will definitely get started on the RFP for planning services, and I think I'll need some clarity on the RFP for the lake planning, and I'll reach out to the environmental committee members of council for that. And I just wanted to know, we've lost Councillor Bray. She was trying to call me while we've been talking here, so she may have been kicked off the meeting, but just of note.
Mr. Mayor, just quickly, sorry to
Notice-
take, sorry.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Sorry to take us back, but I just want to make sure, I know that 2024, the Accessibility Act and all its implications need to be dealt with, whatever they are. That's in the plan somewhere, I take it, eh? That's in the action items. If not, shouldn't it be, I guess is my question.
I thought it was, but I'm going to defer to the CAO to answer your question.
Well, in the interest of time, I will make sure it is. I
Okay,
believe it
thanks.
does have mention because it's linked to the asset management planning and the 225 timeline.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
It's accentuated.
Okay, thank you.
The Councillor Bray is returning. Yeah.
Oh, she is back. Oh, okay. I was just making a note that she was gone, but she managed to get back. Okay, so we're ready for the confirmatory bylaw. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Councillor Woods moves.
I can
seconded by
second that, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Nash. That the bylaw 28-2023 being the confirmatory bylaw for the special council meeting of Monday, April. Whoops. Oh yeah, that's right. Monday, April 24th. 2023 be given a first, second, third, and final reading and is passed as of this date. All those in favor, please indicate. And that's carried. And finally, a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Lamb is moving to adjourn, seconded by Councillor Woods. And the time is 5:46 PM. All those in favor? Thank you, that's carried. Thank you very much, everybody, for your hard work, and enjoy the rest of your day. Stay
Okay,
safe.
Have a good
thank
night,
you.
everyone.
Thanks.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, thanks.